You ever wonder what it would be like to live in a world where your rights and freedoms depended on whether or not you were a dude? Well, if you're a dude living in ancient Mesopotamia around 1750 BC, that would be a real thing to worry about. Because back then there was this guy named Hammurabi who decided that he wanted to make some laws. And these laws were so extreme that they would make your life pretty terrible if you were a dude. See, Hammurabi was the king of Babylon and he wanted to make his kingdom great. To do that, he needed to establish some laws and order. So he created a legal code called the Code of Hammurabi, which outlined the punishments for various crimes. Now, this is pretty standard stuff for a ruler to do, right? Like, we all kind of assume that laws are good and that they're supposed to keep society running smoothly. But the thing is, Hammurabi's laws were insanely harsh and they were especially cruel to women. For example, one of his laws stated that a woman could only be put to death by stoning if she committed adultery. But if a man was caught cheating, he would only get a fine. Also, women had to have their noses and eyebrows shaved off as punishment for, effectively, being too attractive. And if a woman was deemed to be ugly, she would be set free. That's because back then, beauty standards were kind of different. I mean, just think about it. If you were a woman in ancient Babylon and you had big boobs and an even bigger ego to match, you might have been put to death for being too hot. On the other hand, if you were a dude, you could bone whoever you wanted with basically no repercussions. Talk about a major buzzkill. But it wasn't just women who had it bad under Hammurabi's laws. Slaves were also brutally oppressed. For instance, if a slave was accused of stealing, they were put to death. And if a master beat their slave to death, they would only receive a small fine. Basically, Hammurabi's laws were designed to benefit men and screw everyone else over. And as messed up as those laws are, there's an even darker secret behind them. You see, throughout history, there have been many people who have claimed to be chosen by God to establish laws and maintain order. And Hammurabi was no exception. He believed that he had been chosen by the gods to rule over the Babylonians, and that gave him the divine right to make whatever laws he wanted. In fact, according to legend, after Hammurabi finished writing down his laws, he had them inscribed on a black stone monument called the Black Stone of Destiny, and then he placed it in the temple of his favorite god, Marduk. Now, if you're thinking that sounds kind of familiar, well, you're not mistaken. That's because the concept of divine right to rule is the same idea that was used by kings and queens throughout Europe in the Middle Ages to justify their absolute power. And it is also the same idea that was used by America as founding fathers to justify kicking everyone, including women, out of the country so they could start their own country based on freedom and democracy. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. The point is, Hammurabi may have lived thousands of years ago, but his story is still relevant today because it shows how laws can be used to maintain order and control in society. Whether you're a fan of Hammurabi's laws or not, there's no denying that they had a big impact on the world. Okay, thanks. Bye.